Let me start this episode out with saying salute to Nuggets Nation. The Denver Nuggets have won the first NBA championship in the history of that storied franchise. Salute to the Joker. 30 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. He is your NBA Finals MVP, and rightfully so. Let me give out some side salutes. DeAndre Jordan, Thomas Bryant, salute to those guys. Jamal Murray coming back from that horrific injury to reestablish himself as a star in this league, to reestablish himself as one of the best shot creators and makers in the NBA. I'll say it again. Joker's their best player. Jamal Murray's their most important player. And shout out to Aaron Gordon, who found his NBA lane, found his place in the NBA. Talented player, incredible, freakish athlete. But what he does for Denver, his ability to guard all positions, that includes fours and some fives. He's so diverse, and people underestimate his physical strength on both ends of the floor. Aaron Gordon, you can't put a two on him, and you can't put most threes on him. He can play bully ball with the best of them. But his basketball IQ, the chemistry he has with Joker and Murray, when they run that two-man game, it's something special. It's really a three-man game because when you try to cut off Murray turning the corner or when Joker rolls, that activates Aaron Gordon rolling. One of them catches and then they lob it to him. The Denver Nuggets are the best team in basketball. Now the question is going forward. We're in the aftermath. And then the aftermath of each NBA season, that's when it gets interesting because we start talking about what could be or what might be. And we'll be back doing that on the other side. It's the NBA Cypher. Let's go. So let's get into the aftermath. In the aftermath of somebody winning the title, the first thing people want to talk about is A, can you keep this team together? Is this team good enough to repeat? Or was this a one off? So let me answer the obvious question. It's not a one off in the sense that they have the talent. They just proven that to you that they can win the title. That's done. That's happened. They're certified going forward for the rest of their careers. If Joker only ends up winning one title, he will still be an NBA champion for the rest of his career. But I think the Denver Nuggets have the ability to repeat. Now, you've got to have some luck, and probably nothing is more important than being able to be healthy going into the postseason. The NBA season can be a grind, 82 games. And what you want in a perfect world is to have all your core players going into the postseason healthy. So if the Nuggets can be healthy as they were this postseason, no major injuries, this team, look at their core. When you look at the Joker, Murray, Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, KCP, when you look at their core, this team is loaded. It is the deepest team in basketball, not by accident. And these guys are all in their mid 20s. So this team is not only deep, they're still young. Some of these guys are just coming into what we would call their primes. Now, outside of a couple of players, obviously, Uncle Jeff, who's on the other side of 30, DeAndre Jordan, who's on the roster, but Bruce Brown is in his early 20s. Like, this team is built to go on a run. Now, will they do something like the Warriors and go to 6 finals and win 4 of those? That's a big ask. And I'm not sure you're going to see something like that in the NBA anytime soon. But if you ask me over the next, let's say 3 or 4 years, let's just, even if you aim low, let's set the bar low. The bottom line is, do the Nuggets, does this Nuggets team win another title in the next 2 to 3 years? I think the chances are very good. And it could be as soon as next season because you have to look at the road in front of them. Who's in front of them? Right now, today, The Western Conference is in disarray right now. And just FYI for anybody that goes, they only won because it's top heavy and they got to go against inferior teams. Let's not go there. Let's not ever do that. Let's be clear on one thing. The NBA has always, this is going way, way, way back to Russell's Celtics, maybe more so if you look at how the league was set up. The NBA has always been top heavy. It's always been a top heavy league. That's never changed. And it's never going to change. Now, what has changed is you've had some small market teams win titles here and there, which I think are great, very great. It's great for the league. It's great in terms of growth. It's great in terms of casual fans being entertained and brought into the league. So no, the Nuggets aren't a fluke. But look at the Western Conference. The Lakers were the 7th seed, and they made it to the conference finals. You could switch over to the East. Remember, we all know the Heat were the 8th seed, and they went to the NBA finals. But let's focus just on the West. The Warriors, you'd say they had a down year for them. They did have some injuries, and so they didn't really have their core together over the stretch of the season. They were the 6th seed. Clippers were the 5th seed. Now, you can say if this and if that, and that's why a really good friend of mine, my co-host on the morning show, points out the Western Conference really is set up to be the if was a 5th conference. If the Clippers can stay healthy, if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, let's say they can stay as healthy as they were in the bubble with the supporting cast that they currently have, maybe they'll add a piece here and there, but if they can stay healthy, yes, the Clippers are a legit title contender. But if you go on if versus what actually has occurred, the likelihood of those two guys staying healthy throughout the regular season, more importantly, because I think this is more important, if they go into the playoffs healthy, then you got a problem. But right now, I don't view the Clippers as title contenders. The current roster that the Warriors put on the floor right now, still dangerous, still very good, but I don't think it's good enough to win a title right now. And I know the Warriors, they just won the title a year ago. But just like that, the league has shifted. Just like that, look, the Denver team that they beat before, it's not the same Denver team. Now you've got the Jamal Murray that you saw in the bubble. Now you've got explosive, shot creating, shot making, taking over late in the game Jamal Murray. That's a different animal. And they're not ready for that. You also got the Kings coming up. Even though the Warriors beat them, the Kings got their feet wet this postseason. I'm looking at Sacramento, and I'm looking at their roster top to bottom. To me, Sacramento needs another wing player that can get buckets for them. As talented as that team is, they need another guy who can take some pressure off of De'Aaron Fox. Maybe let De'Aaron Fox spend some time off the ball. They also need a defender. I don't care if it's a big who spells Sabonis or somebody that takes over for Keegan Murray. They need a defender, and they need to get a better defensive mindset as a team. Now, if you haven't been watching the Sacramento Kings, their offense this year was historic. Go look at the numbers. They literally had a historic year offensively. On the flip side, who can't score on them? They're in the bottom 5 defensively. They literally beat you by outscoring you. They don't get stops. They don't play defense like that. That's something with this young team that if they're going to take that next step, they've got to embrace the other end of the floor, and that starts with their best player, De'Aaron Fox. I'm looking at Phoenix, and what you're going to hear is they've got Durant, they've got Booker. They're set up to contend. If you've got Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, you should be a contender. But if you don't have a bench, if you don't have depth, if you don't have guys that can do the dirty work, that's all you are is a contender. So what I would say to people is look with your eyes. The analytics are one thing, but look with your eyes. The Phoenix Suns, they weren't a title contender last year. And if Chris Paul hadn't got hurt, it wouldn't have changed anything. They weren't going to beat the Denver Nuggets. They're just not good enough, not deep enough. And right now, as their roster stands right now, unless they can get a young point guard or at least someone who's near their prime that can create and score, they're going to be in the same situation. Phoenix is desperate for another playmaker to take pressure off of Booker and Durant. And remember, Father Time is undefeated. Now, a lot of guys have found ways to extend their greatness, and they should get credit for that. But I'm watching KD, and I saw what KD did last year in the playoffs, and I saw what KD did this year in the playoffs. Father Time is calling. He's taking a step back. Still a great player. Still the most efficient scorer probably maybe in NBA history in terms of perimeter players. But right now, what Phoenix has, to me, they have a mess because they're in disarray. Other than Booker and Durant, you want to move Ayton. You need a point guard. I don't even know if they have the cap space to go out and get a lot of these things done. They're going to have to get off of Ayton's contract, and they're going to have to find a way to get a trade that fills all those holes. The Clippers, it really just comes down to health. And then don't forget, you've got young and up and coming teams. Don't slip on the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were 40-42, and they were missing a couple of main pieces to that roster. Not to mention what they may do this offseason to add somebody to SGA. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't know what seed they'll be, but I've got the Thunder making the playoffs this season, which means a team like the Pelicans, who we keep waiting to launch, we keep waiting to make that jump, but their best player, or at least the guy they want to be their best player, they want to be their foundation, Zion Williams, cannot stay on the floor. Until Zion Williamson can stay on the floor, the Pelicans are always going to be a what if, which is the theme for the Western Conference. With the Lakers, that was a fantastic run when you look at where they started the season. But in the end, if you're a Laker fan, if you know what Laker Nation, what the Laker organization focuses on, making it to a conference finals, there's no satisfaction in that. The goal is to win titles, and now AD and LeBron are a year older, while Austin Reeves has established himself as a legitimate main rotation player in that starting lineup. Do the Lakers have enough right now? They do not. The Lakers, here's the thing about the Western Conference, maybe the whole NBA. If your team is not the Denver Nuggets, if your team isn't the Boston Celtics, even though they came up short, if your team's not the Milwaukee Bucks, and I just think they need to make small changes to that roster. If you're not one of those teams, you're going to be competing for the services of a lot of the same guys this offseason beyond making major trades. The Memphis Grizzlies, young, talented team, but again, a troubled star with a lot of issues off the court. And if Ja Morant, if he gets the suspension that a lot of people see coming, because I think we're looking at least 25 to 30 games, but it might be much more than that. Automatically, even though they've played well without Ja, that puts Memphis in a hole going into and throughout the early parts of the season. So to me, I'm looking at the Nuggets, and I'm looking at the Nuggets looking over their shoulders. What is it for the Nuggets to fear in their own conference? You don't fear the Timberwolves. There's nothing happening there. The Kings are really good, but they're not ready yet. The Suns, they have until they make a significant move that shifts the balance of power. You beating them and you beat them again. You can't rely on the Clippers' health with Golden State because Steph, Dre, and Clay have gotten older. They need more young legs to come in there and help them. They need a deeper bench to solidify what they already have around those older core players. I'm looking at Memphis. It's not going to happen this coming season. I'm looking at the Pelicans, another big what if. And then you start talking about the others. Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. Those aren't contenders. Even whoever, and we know it's going to be the Spurs, that end up with Big Vic, he's going to improve their fortunes. He's not making them a title contender this year. So I'm looking at the Nuggets. All they have to do is remain healthy, and everybody stays in their lane and money doesn't become an issue, the Denver Nuggets right now, they have every reason to believe, and common sense tells you every reason to believe that the Denver Nuggets, if nothing else, they're coming out of the Western Conference again next season. Switch it over to the Eastern Conference. The East is top heavy as you can get. There are 3 legit title contenders in the Eastern Conference. You got Boston, you got Milwaukee, and I'll throw in the Miami Heat. And I know the Miami Heat look like a one-off where they came from, the play-in, the 8th seed. Don't bet against Pat Riley. Pat Riley watched this Heat run. He also watched what they did in the finals and what they couldn't do in the finals. And he knows if I get to the finals with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, no Tyler Hero, and a bunch of guys who are very good basketball players, but not guys that you would call stars. This is not a stacked team. This is the ultimate overachieving team. But what they're missing is a number 1 scorer. Jimmy Butler can stay their best player. But what they need is they need a lead scorer. They need another guy that can drop 25 to 30 on a given night and let Jimmy Buckets do what he does, especially in the playoffs. Because right now, it's a hard ask. It's even more impressive when you think about it from this standpoint. In this NBA, with the way the game is played, with the floor spaced the way it is, shooting is at a premium. You got to have guys who can catch and shoot at a high level. But even more important that's at a premium are guys that can create off the dribble. The reason why I thought so highly of the Boston Celtics was you had Tatum, you had Brown. And I know Brown struggled and people are talking about his handle. To be clear, Jaylen Brown, when he's being guarded one-on-one, he has a good enough handle to beat people off the bounce. His struggles come when he over dribbles and he tries to dribble in traffic and he turns the ball over. But they had 2 guys at the top, their 2 best players, who can create for themselves. Malcolm Brogdon can create for himself. Derek White is good off the dribble. Marcus Smart has the ability in spurts to get shots off the dribble. They have multiple guys that can put the ball on the floor, and that's what made them different from most teams. And then you have the Miami Heat. This version of the Miami Heat. They had 1 guy who could consistently put the ball on the deck and create for himself, and that was Jimmy Butler. And they made it all the way to the finals. That's impressive. So I'm going to count Miami right up there because I trust in Pat Riley. So I'm going to say, looking at the East, I don't think nothing changes. I think it's the Bucks, it's the Celtics. I'm going to throw the Heat in there, and I'm going to throw the Sixers in there because I think Daryl Morey's job is on the line if he doesn't do something significant in Philly. Doc's already gone. You're not firing Embiid. You're not getting rid of the player. The next person to go in Philly, if they don't do something significant on the floor and into a deep playoff run, that's going to be Daryl Morey. He will be fired. So I'm going to say that Denver's got a clear path in the West. In the East, there's more competition because the East is top heavy. I'll take the top of the East versus the top of the West. And I'm telling you right now, with Boston, with Philly, with Milwaukee, with the Miami Heat, those are your title contenders. The Knicks are very good. They're very good, but they're not title contenders. I like the Cavaliers. I like the move for Donovan Mitchell. That was important for them. But I think that the Cavs management, they have to really look at their roster construction and where the league is actually, the league is constantly evolving. Right now, you're seeing less and less teams play with 2 bigs, especially if your 2 bigs are both zero range players. Evan Mobley, still young, still up and coming. He can improve his range, and I'm sure he's going to get in the lab and do that this offseason. But Jared Allen is going to be who he is. He does most of his work in the restricted area. When you have them both on the floor in a regular season, I think you can get away with that. But when you get in the playoffs and you're playing only the best of the best and the floor shrinks and it's about spacing, you can't have 2 bigs like that on the floor. The Knicks exploited that so easy constantly. And then you had Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland basically trying to operate while being constantly blitzed and double teamed. So I think the Cavs have to address either getting they've well look, they need another scorer anyway. But if you're going to leave those two bigs on the floor, you have to go out and get another scorer because you're going to have to find a way to create and maybe use Allen Moore with dives and bring Mobley off of floppy motion, get him moving as well. I just don't think you can play with two bigs consistently in the current NBA. A mistake, by the way, that for whatever reason, and I'll never get over it, the Minnesota Timberwolves thought was actually a great idea. And look, I could go into a rant about why bad franchises remain bad, but I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to focus on the fact that I think Cleveland really needs to take a look at their roster construction. You've got teams like the Bulls who are closer to being a lottery team than a playoff contender. Look, you know what I would like to do? Honestly, I would like to do a whole episode on very good players. Some of them are star players that are miscast. And when I say miscast, they're put in a position of being the number one guy. And the debate isn't, are they the best player on that team? Because they may very well be the best player on that team. That doesn't mean that that particular player, though, is a franchise player. I've watched DeMar DeRozan his whole career, from college to right now. He is gifted. He is talented. But he's been miscast. I think DeMar DeRozan on a title contender is your third best player. Same for Zach LaVine. And they've got both of them together in Chicago. You're not winning a title with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan as your two best players. That's nothing against either one of them. They're all-star caliber players. They're not franchise players. It just is what it is. And while I enjoy watching Trae Young, he's a talented kid. I think he's ball dominant, and he can be a chucker at times. You're not going to win a title with that type of style. You're not going to win a title with a small guard. Not when he's ball dominant and he's just chucking up shots left and right, and he gives you nothing on the defensive end. And I know people will point at Steph. Steph is the exception to the rule. And the way Steph does it is completely different than how Trae Young does it. Because a lot of what Steph does is off the ball. He's not ball dominant at all. So when I look at the East, top heavy, but they've already got their 4 title contenders. In the West, I don't know, other than Denver, who are the title contenders. There's no shortage of playoff contenders, but tell me who right now in the Western Conference that you look at and go, yeah, they can beat the Nuggets in the series, because I'm not seeing that. So that's what I'm looking at. We're in the aftermath of the NBA Finals, and of the NBA season. The beauty of the NBA, though, right, is they keep you engaged year round, because no league, not football, not baseball, no league keeps you more engaged with rumors and hearsay and what could be, what might be, who said they want to go here, who's talking to who to try to come join them. No team does that better. No team works the rumor mill with not just their hardcore fans, but their casual fans than the NBA. That's why there's no off season. We're going to go into the draft next weekend. After next weekend, we're going to be in Summer League. After Summer League, there's a small break because football becomes more prominent. And then you get into October, you got postseason baseball, which is the best time of the year, because I love postseason baseball. But then football's just getting started. And before you know it, the NBA is back. But through that time, that whole cycle, the NBA rumor mill will be on fire about potential trades or what trades should or could be made. So what I'm going to do is, in the meantime, this time of the year, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to start talking about that subject that has been brought up before in the past by different pundits, but I'm going to do it. We're going to have fun with this. We'll do a little segment called Player or Plumber, and we'll take a player from this era and talk about what he would do in another era. We'll take a player from another era. Let's say John Havlicek. What would John Havlicek be in the current NBA? And the question will be simple. Would John Havlicek be a player or a plumber? and we'll go from there. So until next time, fam, I'll hear from you guys tomorrow morning on the morning show. I'll actually bring this subject up on the morning show because it's the way we can have fun. We can also engage in talking about what's the new top 10, the current all time, the top 10 players in the NBA history right now today. Also, with KD eventually going to retire, LeBron's going to retire. LeBron's already in the top two, top three. Where's KD going to be when it's all said and done? Where's Kyrie going to be? Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and players like that. You're going to have a new wave of stars coming in when these stars move on. But where will these stars be ranked once it's all said and done? So until tomorrow, this show drops tomorrow. I also do the morning show. It's the NBA Cypher. Next time.